Okay, first off, I want to thank the grace of heaven and the virtues of the masters, the mercy of the grand predecessors, transmitting masters, lecturers, and everyone here today for the opportunity to continue talking about this topic. So, let's see. Yeah, all right. So last time we kind of finished this here, number 4, observe the rules and proprieties. So just remember this is saying that there were we typically think about the external rules and proprieties, but we don't think about the internal. And Holy Teacher reminds us that we have internal rules, which is basically governed by our conscience. Okay, so we all have this conscience. The conscience is, it's kind of like, you can say, like the voice of our Buddha nature. Okay, so we don't want to focus. I mean, obviously the external rules and proprieties we have to do as well. It's just and we have to observe those, but don't forget. In other words, don't forget the internal rules. Okay, that we also have. All right, so. So basically, these two, the number 3 and number 4, maintain dignity and righteousness and observe the rules and proprieties. They're related. Okay, these kind of go together because dignity and righteousness, it comes through our self-restraint. Okay, our self-discipline, right? Observing the rules and proprieties, and also doing things according to what our responsibilities, what our duties, our role are. Okay, whether that's in the temple or outside. Because you remember, Holy Teacher is saying that these, although they're called, well, we call them temple rules, okay, or temple rules and regulations. They don't just apply to the temple. Okay, so they apply to us anywhere, wherever we are, okay, in our everyday life, really. Now, so it's both internal, external. We have to, so in terms of the dignity, maintaining dignity and righteousness, right? That's basically our words and actions have to be in accord with propriety, with what's proper. The mind should not be defiled, right? So you should not be aroused or perturbed by whatever is happening around us outside, okay? And our intentions, our thoughts should be unbiased, okay? So we should not give rise to emotions, passions, desires, that kind of thing, okay? So now, we have to listen to the conscience, right? Do not have distracting thoughts and do not be controlled by our desires and emotions. Distracting thoughts. So one of the practices that we do, and we've talked about this before, is letting go of all karmic affinities and not giving rise to a single thought. Because, we have these distracting thoughts that pop up all the time in our mind. They're kind of almost like out of our control. They just pop up whenever. From, I guess, our subconscious, but those are related to our past, you could say karma, or the planting of karmic seeds. Okay, so they'll pop up, and so we have to make sure that we don't follow through with those thoughts. Okay, because then, so that's that first part. Well, it's actually both parts, right? The letting go of karmic affinities. So we don't want to continue with those karmic affinities, right? and not give rise to those thoughts. Okay, so now externally, we have this is actually the Sanqing Sizen. Okay, the three distinctions, and the 4, I'll call it the 4 proprieties. Okay, so this is actually both internal and external. So we should observe these as well. So when it says, right, this says number 4, observe the rules and proprieties. It's not just these 15 rules, okay? It's all the other ones that we may have in the temple as well, all right? So these So we're talking about the three distinctions. The first one being it's called 圣凡清. Okay, so that's distinction between the holy and the mundane. Basically, or you can say the divine, right, and the worldly, or we can also say public. You can say public and private, or personal. Okay, so there's that distinction that we have to make, right? So we do not mix temple and personal matters. So we have to basically not discuss business or conduct business in the temple or in any kind of holy setting. So the temple, when we say temple, I mean temple proper. So like obviously if you go to the temple, that's the temple. But if let's say we go outside and we're propagating the Tao, then that's also a holy setting. Then if we're conducting maybe a Tao ceremony, it's like a temporary temple, an altar set up that we set up temporarily. It's the same thing. Okay, so we shouldn't mix or confuse the distinction between excuse me, the holy and the mundane. Right, holy matters is performing heaven's work and spreading the true Tao. And everyone should help in doing this. Okay, so the common family matters, right? They should be taken care of appropriately, of course. But there are more appropriate venues for discussing and conducting business, right? So that's, again, that we don't do that in the temple, okay? Because that's not, for the most part, business wouldn't be, that's a mundane matter, okay? That's not a holy matter, right? Now, we also need to have, okay, so the second one then is the Chen Cai Qing, okay, so that's clarity and propriety in temple finances, right? In the temple, people make donations, okay, and of course the temple has expenses. So we have to be very clear because the money is coming from, everyone, people. And so we have to be clear about what's coming in and how we're spending it. Okay, so, from the Buddha's point of view, it's like every penny counts, and they say, each penny is as weighty or as, as big as like they call it Mount Sumeru. Okay, it's like as big as a mountain. Okay, so in other words, every penny is very important. Okay, so we have to use donations wisely and appropriately in the temple. All right. And certainly, as a temple, even if it's not like established as a public charity, the nonprofit organization, even if it's kind of done somewhat kind of like privately, if you will, we have to follow the same rules, right? Be very transparent and clear with the finances. In fact, all the temple hosts, right? Basically, the temple hosts are pretty much, if we're talking about like a public temple, they are the supporters, the financial supporters of the temple. And so every month, we should produce basically like a financial, kind of like a financial statement, if you will, that shows, this is how much donations we got, and then these are the expenses, and kind of make everything very clear and open, right? Okay, so public donations, of course, the donations to temples, they cannot be for personal use, right? I can't say, I'm kind of short on cash, I need to borrow some money, right, I can borrow it from the temple and then use it and I'll pay it back. You can't do that. That's forbidden. Okay, you can't do that. And much less so to actually spend that money for personal purposes. So so those are great. That's pretty big sin, actually. I mean, it's like you're taking public funds and then just using it for yourself. That's not the intended purpose. When people make donations, usually they say what it's intended for. Yeah, I mean, it could be general, okay? I mean, you just say, oh, it's just a general donation, and that's fine. The temple can decide how best to use that donation. But sometimes they might say, oh, it's for printing books, right? Printing, the books, or it could be for other specific purposes. And if that's the case, then we also have to make sure that that's how we spend that money. Okay, so we have to basically fulfill the wishes of the person who's making the donation. Okay, say what it's for. Now, I mean, they can't just say, oh, it's for any old thing that they say. It's usually the temple kind of says, oh, give guidelines or general categories of what you can donate for, like building the temple, things like that. Okay, so and then they would choose either general or one of those other things. But we should definitely, we must actually use it for that purpose. Okay. Now, if we find out that, well, maybe we don't really need, let's say we have too much, there's too much donated for a particular purpose, but like printing books, let's say, we have too much money there, but we have a need in something else. Well, we'd have to ask the donors, to say, oh, are you willing to, we have a need for this other, let's say, building a temple, and can we change that donation from printing books to, building the temple, for example. So we have to do that. Okay, so this is all, trying to maintain that clarity, transparency, and also at the same time fulfilling the wishes of the donor. Okay, and we should spend wisely. We shouldn't just, oh, hey, we have this money, let's just spend it any which way, even though we might be fulfilling their wishes. We still should be very careful about how we spend the money. Okay, we shouldn't be extravagant. For example, like we're building a temple, we shouldn't say, well, hey, let's just spend all this money and buy all the most expensive stuff for it. I like this type of decision, of course, happens within the temple, and it shouldn't be like, oh, there's one person who decides that, right? So it kind of usually there's like a Tao center or something where it's a group of transmitters, or lecturers, temple hosts, where they can make this kind of decision. All right. So again, we have to be very careful about how we spend the donations. Now the third. Right. Oh, okay. Sorry. So heaven scrutinizes the use of every penny, right? So inappropriate use of funds adds to one's sins and guilt. So we have to be really careful. All right. Okay. So the third distinction is 男女界限情. Okay. So the boundary between male and female. Okay. So if you notice, if you come to the temple, you'll see that in terms of like the rituals, the ceremonies, the male and female, they kind of do it separately, right? And also when, whether it's listening to class or whatever, they're separated. Okay, so the males sit on one side, females sit on another side. Okay, so there's this distinction. We have to maintain this distinction, this boundary, right? So, because the temple is originally, it's a pure and a quiescent place. Okay, so the purpose here is not to, it's not to have a, kind of get into some kind of romantic relationship in the temple. Okay, so that wouldn't be proper. We lead or show by way of solemn and dignified conduct. Now, we shouldn't have any like inappropriate thoughts or desires or any kind of, romantic or intimate relationship with other members within the temple, because that can lead to trouble and disaster. Okay, it can. That's it's generally not good. Okay, so so one thought can create thousands of evil without us knowing. So reflect on having no desires and not be entangled in this, in trying to get into kind of this love, this type of love, if you will. But we're talking about within the temple setting. Okay, so what happens outside the temple, that's different. But definitely within the temple, it should be a solemn and dignified place, right? So that's not the appropriate kind of thing to happen in the temple. All right. So the other thing is the 四正. Okay, so this is basically these four: the 心正、身正、言正, and 行正. Okay, so these four. So basically, the mind, the body, our words, and our actions. Okay, so this. All right, so basically we have to make sure that they are all proper. Sometimes we say, well, this is kind of like, well, no, let's see, this is not, okay, no, it's not the other one. Okay, so, but anyways, so the first, talking about the mind, right? So cultivating Tao is cultivating the upright heart and mind, okay? So the upright heart and mind is one that has that's without any not having any shame, right? Right. To cultivate Tao is to cultivate the heart and mind, and is planting the seed to attain Buddhahood. Right? Many dharmas. There are many dharmas. Well, basically, yeah. But there's only one mind. Right. The mind has the right view. That has the right view is in the moment. Right. Great righteousness pervades from past to present. Inner virtue nurtures the nature or the essence, having no evil thoughts. It is more stable when encountering trials and hardships. Be the master of sight, hearing, speech, actions, and conduct, and maintain the original pure heart and mind. Okay, so we are all sentient beings. I mean, we're all human. And we're not perfect. We're not fully enlightened. So we need to restore our heart and mind to the pure and innocent state that it was originally. Okay, that's the mind of the Buddha, the Bodhi mind. But because we have the human mind, the human consciousness, right? We talked about this before. That we have to transform that into wisdom, divine wisdom. Okay, so. And so we have to make sure that our mind is clear, is not defiled, not have these thoughts that we shouldn't have, things like that. So so this also includes emotions, right? Desires, things like that we said that we shouldn't give rise to those. Okay. Excuse me. Then in terms of the body, right? The body, basically, we should be humble and respectful, considerate and harmonious. Okay. The upright conduct and manner should be as an example, setting an example for others. So the upright body or conduct, right, and appearance is the model or standard. The Jingzi, which is the superior person, right, nurtures virtue and cultivates the body, or the conduct with diligence. By knowing heaven's will and establishing one's life and mission, right, we set an example with one's conduct. So we save the world, right, and selflessly ferry sentient beings. Right, that's the big goal for the Tao. Faithful and unyielding in true principle, right? We do the right thing. Okay, we should never break. We should never I mean, we should always uphold the true principles, the Tao principles. Okay. Yeah, never, essentially, never break, go against the principles. Spread the Tao, spirit and energy with dignified attitude, right? Clear understanding of the body and function is being humble and having a respectful manner and bearing. Okay, so this is body and function, right? We say, or essence and function. In this case, we're talking about the body. So being humble, and then you can say, right, and then also, being respectful and in manner and bearing. Okay, so we have consideration for others, right? Reciprocity, right? Reciprocity is basically, it's like the golden rule. Okay, so we treat others the way we want to be treated, or we don't do unto others as we don't want others to do unto us. Okay, and then harmony, right? That completes the Dharma body, right? So ultimately, so we do all these things. We have consideration for others, and we maintain reciprocity and harmony with others, and that is really what it says is the Dharma body, which is the Dharma, the true self. Okay, all right, and okay, so and then the third one, which is talking about our words, our speech. So we have to eliminate the 4 vices of speech. Okay, so those basically, okay, so upright or proper speech, right? We don't speak falsehoods, lies, basically. Okay, so we have to make haste to eliminate the 4 evil speeches, which is lying, gossip, or these are talk that is talking about someone's right or wrong, whatever. Double talk, which could be divisive talk, right? Or talking behind, saying one thing to one person and saying something else to a different person about someone else, things like that. And then our abusive or harsh language. Okay, so all disasters come from the mouth. Okay, pretty much. I mean, not everything, but most, because we talk a lot, right? And so if we're not careful with what we say, we create a lot of disasters. Okay, and so not being cautious is the way to stir up trouble. We have to talk quietly. Okay, so we shouldn't be shouting all the time. I mean, especially in the temple, right? In the temple, we should definitely maintain that. You can say that atmosphere of it shouldn't sound like you're in a night market or something. It should be relatively quiet. So even if we're talking to people, it should be relatively quiet. Okay. Everyone is happy to hear clean words and speech, or good. Say good words. So teach tirelessly and spread the truth. Establish upright speech to speak for heaven and Tao. Okay, so because heaven doesn't speak for itself, Tao doesn't speak either. So it depends on the cultivators, the Tao cultivators, to talk about the truth, to spread the truth. Okay, so but we have to make sure that what we say is, I guess you'd say, good, right? It's proper, and does not offend. Try not to. We don't want to create, because we can create a lot of karma with our words. Okay, so we have to be careful. Actions. Okay, finally, the actions. They are upright and unbiased according to the Buddha nature. So they're following based on the Buddha nature. Okay, so remember when we say wu-wei, right? Sometimes we call that the Buddha nature spontaneity, or it's the motiveless action. It's non-subjective action, non-dualistic action, all these things, non-conditional action. Okay, so that's coming from the Buddha nature. So if we act according to that principle, the wu-wei, then our actions should be upright. All right. So actions. Okay, so do not do things, right? We should do things to benefit others and people, right? Diligently practice tolerance and mercy, right? Imitate and follow in the footsteps of the Chen Shen, right? The worthies. Right? Actions and behavior are completely examined by heaven. Okay, so obviously heaven is, they're watching us. Okay, as cultivators, heaven is watching us very carefully in all these aspects. Okay, so if not to observe the temple rules and disciplines is to inflict self-loss, right? So we think, this rule doesn't apply to me, or I don't need to follow these rules. We're only gonna that's only gonna hurt ourselves. Okay, I mean, it may hurt others too, but it definitely hurt ourselves. We won't be able to be. We will not be successful in cultivation, right? And we will not succeed in ultimately attaining the Tao, right? Attaining enlightenment. And then so we should maintain. So we should observe the rules and proprieties in all that we do, right? Maintain dignity and righteousness, so that we can practice Tao with happiness and joy. Okay. All right. So these are kind of like the other rules and or proprieties, right? So basically, covering both the internal and the external aspects. Okay. All right, so now we move on to number 5, which basically says to take responsibility. Well, that's kind of probably oversimplified, but okay. So what does this mean? What is responsibility, right? Well, in this case, it's kind of like let's see. Yeah, okay. It's just looking at these first two words here. Says, what is responsibility, right? It is the duty or obligation and the task or an assignment, and it is what we are earnestly supposed to do, right? I mean, we all know this. If we have a specific duty, whether it's on the job or school, like homework, or at home or in the temple, anywhere. We have a specific responsibility. We should fulfill that. We should, do it earnestly. Okay. Now, let's see. Okay. Now, okay. So the superficial interpretation would be just take the responsibility for any task, right? Duty or obligation. Of course, we always should be a responsible person and fulfill our duties and obligations. Right, this is what others expect of us anyway, right? But in the temple, we are taking responsibility also for our holy mission or our heavenly mission, right? This is something special, right? We have to take responsibility for anything we do in Tao cultivation, practice, and propagation, right? This mission from heaven, right, is to ferry the original souls, so basically sentient beings, back home, right, to the heaven of truth. That's the absolute heaven, that when we can transcend the cycle of rebirth. And then so the so-called tasks in this world. So basically, we all come with a mission from heaven, and we also have this task, or you could say task, responsibility, or assignments in this world, which is to purify our heart, right, promote the world of great harmony, encourage and promote upright moral character, right? Make the family satisfactory or whole, and harmonize society. Okay, so it's kind of, you can say, this is the mission from heaven is kind of the internal one, is the one we bring with us into this world. The one that we have in this world on the outside, externally is but I mean, of course, it applies internally as well. We have to purify ourselves, right? Because we are, unfortunately, when we're born, we're as humans, we have the human nature, and the human nature is easily defiled, right? It's easily defiled if we don't purify ourselves. So if we look at an innocent child, an innocent, infant child, right? We can say, well, they're innocent, right? They didn't do anything yet in this world. They haven't done anything bad. Now, obviously, that's not talking about. We don't know what kind of karma they did, in previous lives, what kind of karma they have. But so I mean, just using it as an example to look at. Yeah. So originally we were pure, but as we've grown up, right? As we grow up, we learn things, we do things, then we kind of lose that purity. Okay, we lose that innocence, and so we have to kind of restore that purity and innocence of our. Basically, that's our true nature. Okay, our true self, our Buddha nature. All right, promoting the world of great harmony. That's the goal or the purpose, the aim of Tao, of basically the propagation of the Tao in the world today, is to we're working towards that goal. Okay, try to achieve this world of great harmony. Now, if you look at the world today, of course, we say, well, that's how can that's impossible, right? I mean, there's all this conflict going on, and people are so kind of like against each other. There's no harmony at all, and yeah, that's true. But at least within the Tao community, within the Tao society, right, we can establish this. It wouldn't be it would be like a small world, a microcosm of great harmony, as opposed to the macrocosm. Okay, so but we start small. Okay, we have to start within, at least within the Tao community itself, to have that harmony. And then obviously, encourage and promote upright moral behavior, our people's moral character, because this is really the key, of course. This is like basically purifying the heart. It's the key, the foundation to achieving this great harmony, world of great harmony, right? If people, like in this country, the U.S., it's like, it's all about freedom, right? Freedom to do whatever they want. They don't want restrictions by the government and all that kind of stuff. Well, but what about the moral character? I mean, what about morality, ethics? Is there any self-discipline? If there's none of that, then you're going to have chaos. Okay, so and conflict. Right, so that's why this is kind of the foundation, and this is what all the saints and sages and Buddhas, they're all pointing to. We have to get, this is like the root of the problem is of the human condition. The problem of the human condition is here. Okay, right, and then we also have our duties and responsibilities. Let's say within the family. Okay, so the family is even a smaller microcosm. As opposed to like the Tao community is much bigger. The family is, you can say that's like the basic social unit. Okay, so it's and so if we can't achieve harmony or satisfaction, within the family, then it's very difficult to achieve harmony within society as well. So Confucius, he's teaching also talks about this a lot. We have to address these from the individual level to the family, and then to the society as a whole. Okay, so it starts from there, right? And so therefore, even though, sometimes we have people who are, the Daokin, not all of their family, let's say, have received the Tao, and so maybe this one member of the family has received the Tao and is involved in the Tao, but there could potentially be some kind of maybe not either conflict or not dissatisfaction within the family, because maybe the family member is he's spending time in doing the temple stuff, and then maybe not spending much time with the family. So but there needs to be, you have to kind of have a balance, and Holy Teacher says, we should not neglect our duties outside the temple, right? So especially in family, right? If we should try to, do what we can, and whatever, if it's, if they don't agree to a lot of the stuff, try to communicate or whatever. But really, a lot of things is that, we have to make sure that we're not creating more conflict within the family than, there would be otherwise. So that's very important. That's also part of cultivation, really. It's not just doing the temple stuff, okay? It's in our everyday life, in our relationships with other people, how making sure, trying to maintain that harmony. Again, applying the same kind of rules, principles to those as well. Okay, so if we can't do those well, then coming to the temple and appearing that, you're doing all good stuff in the temple, but at home it's a different matter, then that's not right. That's inconsistent. Okay, we should be consistent whether we're in the temple or elsewhere, at home, outside. Okay. So we want to manifest the preciousness of moral virtue and use it in daily life. So if, Holy Teacher says, so if we are earnest and diligent, right, speaking for heaven, learning from and emulating the saints and sages, rectifying ourselves and helping others to achieve, then we are manifesting the preciousness of moral virtue and using it in daily life. Then we will have a peaceful and clear conscience without shame. Right? The family will be joyful and grateful. Society will be peaceful and harmonious. People will be happy, and they all can restore their original nature. This is to take responsibility. So it's more than what we might think of. Just take responsibility of these very specific tasks or whatever. But it's more than that, right? What Holy Teacher is saying, it's broader, includes more things. Now, so during these end times, right, we must control our thoughts and rectify our conduct. Correct our conduct. Be careful of all bad influences. Right? We must be consistently respectful all the time, right? Whether in temple, at home, or elsewhere. We cannot be rash and morally unrestrained when not in the temple. Okay, so, right. So, basically, obviously in the temple itself, we cannot, we shouldn't fly into a rage, or again, what were we just saying earlier, like the four proper conduct, or four proprieties, maintain, we have to maintain that all the time. But it's not just in the temple. It's everywhere. It's at home and school, at work, out in the street, everywhere. Always be respectful. So, showing respect within the temple to other temple members. But if we go home or go to work and we don't show respect to the boss or coworker or a family member, that's inconsistent. Okay, so that's inconsistent with what a Tao cultivator should be like. Right. So it is the holy mission, right, of Tao cultivators to help save the lost souls. Okay, so that's the lost souls, basically all sentient beings, right? Now, from transmitting masters to staff members, we all have our duties. So we want to transform the decadence and wickedness of society one person at a time by becoming upright and setting a good example. Okay. We can't, even though the goal is to have the whole world be in great harmony. Okay. We have to be realistic, okay, pragmatic, okay, in our approach. We can't just set out to do that. We have to do it one person at a time, right? We help each one person at a time, have them receive the Tao first, and then let them learn about what is proper, what is not, and how they should be become a better human being, and kind of cultivate towards becoming like a saint, Buddha. Okay, so And then each of us, so we all have to not just teach others, right? We have to practice what we preach and be a good example for others. And never, and also we should never give up on our mission responsibilities. Okay, so whether it's the mundane world missions or responsibilities or our heavenly mission, it never ends. It doesn't. The responsibility does not end until we leave this world. Okay, so. But there's it's not to say we're applying this pressure that we have to do. We have to meet a quota or anything like that. It's not like that. Okay. So again, everything is according to the affinity of everyone. So it's there's no set quota or say, oh, you must do this much. Okay. It's all according to our abilities as well. And then so we have to fulfill our duties to perfection. So we should perform our duties and fulfill our responsibilities as best we can, right? As best we can, and try to do it. We should, do it wholeheartedly. We should not do things half-heartedly, where the result is it's not going to be great. Although you can kind of get by, but that's not good. So that's not doing it to perfection. I mean, we're not going to be perfect, but we always have the heart, the mind to do it, and we do it. Try to do our best. Okay. So now in taking responsibilities, right? It's easy to miss the spirit of these rules. Actually, all of these rules, because we usually tend to think in terms of the mundane. Right, but these are temple rules, and therefore they actually apply to holy matters rather than the mundane. Right, so on the surface we say, oh yeah, take responsibility, sure. I have job responsibilities, I have my home family responsibilities, but of course, why would why would Holy Teacher or why would Heaven want us to know about that? I mean, we should know about that already. I mean, so this is more. We have to keep in mind that there is the holy side of things, right? The divine side of things, the spiritual side of things, and that's primarily what. I mean, it can apply to both, but you can say that maybe the focus here should be more on the divine and the holy. Okay. So. Because sentient beings have lost their way, right? Heaven depends on Tao cultivators to follow the aspiration to save the world. Right? This is our responsibility. Actually, religions, they can't really do it. They can't, so you can, religions have been around for thousands of years, and look at the world today. It doesn't seem to be any better in terms of, the morality. Okay. And scientists cannot do it. Technology cannot solve this problem, right? So we have, oh wow, all this great technology makes life convenient, but look at social media. You say, hey, it's a good tool, but yet now there's all this misinformation and everything that's spread through these technology, and so that can't solve the problem. Right? Even governments, they can't do it by legislating, setting laws. That doesn't get to the root of the problem. Remember, is that the changing people's moral character, right? The laws can't do that. Okay, so really only the Tao. Now, religions, yes, they do teach people to be good, but yet, unfortunately, it's very superficial. It's not that deep. Okay, and they don't really get to that the root of the problem. Okay, so that's why the Tao. That's why we have the Tao. Okay, so that's also why our mission is so great. Right? We all have a common goal, but varying responsibilities. Transmitting masters have Heaven's mandate to transmit the Tao. Right. So without transmitting masters, we cannot. No one can receive the Tao. Right. So temple hosts, they have a responsibility to guide and encourage Tao kin. Lecturers have the responsibility to teach the Tao principles. Right? Staff members have the responsibility to help with Tao affairs. Okay, so and everybody has a fundamental duty to fairy sentient beings, right, and guide them to the path of enlightenment. Right, when we all do our part with one heart and one mind, then we can be successful. Right, success is not solely measured by quantity. The quality and spirit of cultivation and practice holds the greatest weight. Right, this is at the very beginning of this topic. I talked about that. It's really the quality, the spirit. Are we following the spirit of the rules as opposed to like the letter of the rules? Okay, just like okay, so really understanding and knowing the spirit of how we're supposed to cultivate, how we're supposed to implement, apply these rules. That's very important. So that's part of the quality aspect. So always do our best, and that is what heaven expects of us, right? Okay, so that was number 5. So now on to number 6, which says to emphasize the holy over the mundane, right? So I was just saying that it's really the holy aspect that's kind of more important. It's not this, I'm not saying that the mundane side of things, the worldly stuff, is not important. Certainly in terms of our survival, it's important. But beyond that, we have to look at the holy side of things. Okay, so whatever we do, right, whether the Tao or holy duties or any other matters, we should emphasize the greater good. So the greater good means it's not just for me. Number one, I'm number one. Everything I have to look out for myself, and everyone is secondary. No, the greater good is for the good of the whole, right? For everyone. It's not just what's good for me, right? It should be what's good for everyone. And so on the other hand, right, if we do things with an emphasis on personal benefit, then that is emphasizing the mundane, right? So here, Holy Teacher is saying that if we are doing things basically for ourselves, that is the mundane, right? And so doing things that are for the greater good of others, then that is what's considered holy or divine, or so anything that we do that is for the benefit of others or the public good are considered holy works. Right? If we can regard these works as important, then it is to emphasize the holy over the mundane. Right? So therefore, a person who truly can emphasize the holy over the mundane, basically the greater good over the personal good or the public over the self, then will not just consider or look after the self or those who respect, love, or treat the person well, right? So, it's not, there was that quote from Einstein, right, that I showed in one of the classes. Basically, we have to expand our circle of, you can say, he says circle of compassion, right, beyond the few people around us who, we like, or they like, us, or friends, family, right? It has to be, should include everyone. Okay, so such a person would benefit sentient beings as more important and will place importance on consideration for the greater good. Such a person will have fulfilled this rule. Okay, so in other words, putting the public, putting the greater good over the personal self. Okay, so this is really you can say the basis of all saints, sages, Buddhas, right? They all put others before themselves. Okay, there is no, they take it all the way where there is no self. There is no more self. And it's all about others. Okay, everything they do is for the benefit of others, helping others. Okay, so this is really this is kind of like the goal here. But of course, when we implement it here, maybe we can't be completely selfless yet. It's certainly when we're starting. And so, but this is this is that direction, that principle, right? The guiding thing, the compass direction, set us in that right direction, okay? And so that's why this is basically this is the first vow that we take after the Dharma class, okay? When we complete the Dharma class, this is the first vow that's there, because this is the foundation, okay? If we don't get this right, then we're still being selfish, we're still looking after ourselves only, and we're not really caring about others, or so why, we wouldn't really go and try to ferry others, things like that. Okay, so what is truly to emphasize the holy over the mundane, and what kind of matter is truly and ultimately beneficial to sentient beings? Right? In this universe, what else besides Tao and the spiritual nature is true, and what is eternal and unchanging? Okay, this holy teacher is asking. So therefore, to help people achieve salvation, transcend the mundane, enter into the holy, is to emphasize the holy over the mundane. Okay, to cultivate and achieve ourselves, eliminate the human nature, and manifest the heavenly conscience, is to emphasize the holy over the mundane. Okay, so this is basically it. That we want the ultimate goal. We ferry people is to let them achieve salvation, to transcend this cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Okay, so that's entering into the holy, the divine, the spiritual. Okay, we have to, but in the process, we need to achieve that, we have to kind of eliminate that human nature. All the you can say the negative aspects of the human nature, that kind of prevent us, or basically, keep us, as being a sentient being, preventing us from becoming enlightened. Okay, so we have to kind of get rid of that, take care of that. That's what all this cultivation is all about, right? And then so that we can manifest the heavenly conscience, right? That is basically manifesting the Buddha nature, right? Okay. Okay, so if we do not get rid of the human heart and mind, right, we're constantly driven by desires, the conscience is obscured, and ignorance rears its ugly head. Okay, then how can we call this emphasizing the holy over the mundane? All right. So that's because the ultimate goal of Tao cultivation and practice is to relinquish attachment to the self, right, and restore the original pure heavenly heart and mind. Okay, so that's again, we have to get rid of the self, get rid of the ego, and ultimately that's what saints, sages, Buddhas, right? There is no more self, no more little self. There's basically, when we get rid of the self that we think, this is me, get rid of that, then we are the greater whole. We are part of the greater self. We say the greater self, where everyone is basically, remember we say all sentient beings have the Buddha nature. They have that same essence. And so we are part of that whole, okay? And we are no longer separated. There is no distinction, say, oh, I am me and you are you, okay? So that's gone, all right? So if we do not have complete sincerity, a changeless heart, neither complaints nor regrets, not manifest the true heavenly heart and Buddha nature, then how can we say that this is emphasizing the holy over the mundane, right? So that we have to have that sincerity, and our heart, our mind should not be constantly changing, right? It shouldn't be influenced by things, conditional things that are changing conditions. Okay, so maintain that Tao heart. Okay, and we, when we're doing things, when we're trying to fulfill our mission, our duties, responsibilities, we shouldn't do them with complaints or any regrets. Right? Okay, so that is, basically, this is clearly, the emphasizing the holy over the mundane is not as as simple, I guess, as we might think. It's a lot of it's a lot more. The scope is a lot greater. Okay. Okay, so we all have mundane matters to do, but they should not get in the way of or interfere with the holy matters. Okay, so it is not to say that we completely ignore our mundane duties and obligations for the sake of holy matters. Right, so that would be kind of extreme. I mean, if we're not in the position to do that, then we shouldn't do that, right? If we're not, I mean, if we still have a job, we have family, we have to deal with those. Okay, so that's not we can't ignore that. Right? But on the other hand, we have a job, we make money, but we shouldn't go too extreme either in doing that, right? We say, I have to work 7 days a week so I can make all this money. Then you have no time to cultivate. You have no time to learn. So, in terms of doing the holy, right, over the mundane. So we have to kind of recognize, how much is enough, right? And say, it's sufficient and that's good enough, then I should spend the rest of my time and effort on the holy, all right? If we have an obligation, right, then we should fulfill that obligation. We can ask, like, for example, to take time off work, to help with holy matters, or whenever we have a choice between mundane activities, and holy matters. We should, hopefully, we choose the holy matters, right? I mean, maybe, whether it's, maybe today I have a day off, I can go shopping, or I can, or maybe I can, there's, someone is receiving the Tao today, and I can go help and help do that, okay? Part of the ceremony, or whether it's encouraging the Tao Kin or whatever, okay? However, we always have to keep in mind that we should always let go of the self, the ego, no matter what, okay? Whether in any kind of situation, right? Even in the mundane, everyday stuff, the self and ego we have to get rid of. It will be of benefit to us ultimately. Okay, so that is something that we should always do. All right. Okay. All right, so these two, number 5, take responsibility, and number 6, emphasize the holy over the mundane. Basically, we emphasize the holy over the mundane. That's the basic condition for perfecting one's nature, okay, or character, I guess. Okay. Actually, let me talk about these first. So we have this holy mission and responsibility that we should emphasize over the mundane, right? Don't forget that. Certainly, when we first receive the Tao, we don't realize, what holy mission? I didn't know I have a holy mission. Well, that's gradually we realize that. Well, that's why we say we're talking about ferrying. We ferry people, right? Bring people to receive the Tao. That is part of our holy mission. Okay. So everyone has that, and it's whoever we have affinity with. We can try to bring them to receive the Tao. Okay, that's what we call ferrying people. Okay, so that's our holy mission. All right. To emphasize the holy is to emphasize Tao principles over the human sentiment. To be fair and just. Right, this is the doctrine and mean and the middle way. So the Tao principles. We should always try to stick with the principles. The human sentiment, aspect, that's, we all have that to a certain extent, but we should not, because this is based on emotions. It could be based on ego, based on all sorts of other things, but it is not necessarily very principled, and so we should definitely try to emphasize the Tao principles over this human sentiment. Okay, All right, so we have to take sentiment lightly. To take sentiment lightly is to relinquish the passions and selfish desires. Right? We want to 克己复礼. Okay, so this is in Confucius. Talks about this, to subdue the self, or you could say restrain the self, right? Discipline the self, and observe the proprieties, right? So don't follow just blindly following my passions and emotions, because that will lead us. It's not gonna lead us to the right path, okay, to the ultimate goal of salvation. Right, so we have to always observe the proprieties. We have to demonstrate Tao in all of our roles and relationships. Okay, so now it can be said that the holy and the mundane is also within the mind. Okay, the mind that follows Tao principles is emphasizing the holy. The mind that seeks benefit for oneself is emphasizing the mundane. Okay. So when we are involved in both holy and mundane matters, we must demonstrate Tao in all our relationships with people in all our roles. Okay, so yeah, even though in everyday life, in our relationships with other people, we should demonstrate those Tao principles in our conduct, in our behavior, in our actions, in our speech, with those other people, even though we're not like conducting some Tao affairs, but we have to show it, right? We have to be the embodiment of Tao, of the Tao principles. Okay, so, however, if we demonstrate Tao externally, but internally our mind is not upright and does not get rid of delusional desires, then this is not emphasizing the holy. Okay, so even if we are not performing Tao matters, but if we are doing things that benefit others, the mind follows the Tao principles, without having any kind of selfish motives, and we demonstrate virtue, then although it looks like we're doing something ordinary, but it is actually considered holy, right? So here saying that, well, that holy aspect then is what's in our mind, as long as we're not, we're not following these desires or emotions, and that as long as we're doing good, benefiting others, that's a holy work. Okay, so do not use mundane matters as an excuse to not perform holy matters. Again, the thing about I don't have time, right? People often say they don't have time. They have to make money. The question is, do they really not have the time, or are they not willing to make the time for holy matters? Right? I think that's really the question. I mean, I don't think most people. I mean, I can't say 100%, but most people are not in a position where their situation is not such that they have to work 7 days a week to really just scrape by and survive. It's really a matter of they're working 7 days a week so that they can get a better house or whatever, and so that's very from the Buddha's point of view, that's very short-sighted, right? That you're focusing on the mundane, the here and now of this life, but not looking for what comes later, comes after. Okay, so you can't achieve salvation by getting a bigger house and making more money. That's not the way to do it. Okay, so we have to recognize that, realize that, and not spend excessive amounts of time on the mundane, right? Refocus, redirect more of our energy and time on what we call the holy, the mundane, the holy or the divine or the spiritual, okay, that we're talking about here. All right. Okay, so I guess because the time, we'll stop here, end it here, and then next time we'll continue with the number 7, right? Okay, so if I had said anything wrong or not satisfactory, I asked Buddhists for forgiveness, and also I asked transmitting masters and lecturers for their corrections. Thank you.